Hey everyone, today is a video all about the dagger, the Catachan combat blade. This is a weapon that I think might reign as one of the best weapons in the game if the dueling sword ever catches that nerf that we're all anticipating, and that's why I'm making a video on it. I'm going to be working my way down the power structure and trying to focus on weapons that I think are just close runners-up to that dueling sword supremacy right now, because if that thing does catch a nerf, you'll need to know everything about these other options because they're going to be so much more in the spotlight. This weapon is like dueling sword light. This weapon is crazy good as well. It was the meta before dueling sword if you played back in that era, and I imagine it will be again at some point because it's not so powerful that it probably needs a straight nerf, but it is a very powerful weapon, and of course it has uncanny strike just like the dueling sword does. So we're going to break this video down into 3 parts, just like the last one. The first part is going to be talking about statting and how to build your knife. The second part is going to be talking about how to fight and use the movesets on the 2 different knife varieties, because I think they're both equally good. And then the final part is going to be showcasing a little bit of movement tech and flair you can use if you're an advanced player with the knife. Okay, here we are on the stats page, and as is with many things in life, number go up is good. And speaking of, I'm trying to make my subscriber number go up to 40,000. Warhammer 40k subscribers before the end of the year is my goal. We'll see if we can make it. It's definitely doable if we keep on a pretty tight pace, but I really appreciate you for supporting the channel by subscribing and commenting which weapon you want me to look at next, and of course liking the video and sharing it, whatever you need to do just to get the word out there. Spread the gospel. Okay, so this weapon, kind of nuts. Let me show you the attack breakdowns here, specifically with the heavy attacks, because these are really nice clean numbers. We are looking at a modest 130 to 150 damage when we're doing light attacks, or when we're doing like regular body shots, but when we get weak spot hits, we are looking at over a 3x multiplier. So look here, this multiplier against most types of enemies like infested and flak, it's a 3x on weak spots and criticals, and it's a 5x on critical weak spot. But that goes up when used against unyielding enemies like crazy. I don't exactly know why they did this, but a weak spot hit is doing 3.3x. A critical hit is doing what is this? 4.8x, and a critical and weak spot hit at the same time is doing 6.8x. So stupid high numbers, meaning it's multiplying whatever number you put into this equation by a lot. So what we want to do is we want to, 1, guarantee that we're getting the crit to boost ourselves from either 3 times to 5 times, or from 5 times to 10 times, or whatever the hell this was. So 6.8. Right, it's definitely important to stack crit on this weapon and to guarantee that you're going to get a lot of crits, but also we want to be hitting weak spots whenever possible for those finishing blows. So that's really the focus of the weapon. And if you can use things on your class, such as your ability to like power up certain attacks, or you have stacking damage buffs or something like that, it's really going to boost this weapon to crazy extremes, because remember, every 5% damage you gain, a base damage that you gain with this weapon, is going to translate, if you get a critical weak spot on a boss or something, it's going to translate into 30% damage because it's being multiplied, sorry, even more than that, almost 35% damage because it's being multiplied by 6.8 times. So we want to be using things with this weapon like the Zealot has, right? He's got a lot of things like sustained assault here that can give you 20% extra damage when you're sustained hitting. He's got the Fury of the Faithful that makes your next attack do 25% extra damage and give a guaranteed crit, an immediate awesome pairing with the dagger. Of course, you could also use Shroud Field, which is going to make that backstab do double damage, have a guaranteed crit and extra finesse damage, so this is going to multiply it to the absolute moon. You can like kill bosses in like 1 or 2 hits with this dagger if you get everything stacked up just right on the Zealot. So Zealot uses it really well, but the other classes aren't too shabby at it either. The Veteran has Reciprocity, which can stack crit up to 25%, and then right below that he has, what's it called? Like, it's not called Duelist, it's like Finesse or something. It gives you 10% crit and something else, or it's pretty nice. So 25% weak spot damage, right? So these sort of buffs are really, really integral to getting the level of crit that you need to consistently hit crits with the weapon, and that's sort of what I want you to build around. Psyker is also not bad at this weapon, because Psyker has a high base chance to crit and lots of crit in the tree, but I think the Psyker has better weapons to use than these two. So on the Veteran and the Zealot, though, this weapon is one of the best. Absolutely. Let's take a look at the stats over here. We're looking at damage, finesse, first target, penetration, and mobility. I think that, as we just established, damage being 80 is pretty important because it's multiplied so heavily. Like 152, compare that to my low damage one here, which is 143, right? You're going to be losing roughly, what's that, like 6 to 8% or something like that damage overall here. But remember, that's being multiplied. This 143 is being multiplied by like 5 plus. So we're really losing quite a considerable amount of damage on each stab just to get a little bit of extra mobility. I think losing the mobility is not going to hurt you. You're only losing 0.09 sprint speed, which is perfectly fine. And then these are absolutely essential. The penetration, which allows us to deal with Carapace and Flak way better than many weapons do. The finesse, obviously that's increasing our damage multipliers like crazy. First target increases our damage against that single first target that we stab. So this weapon becomes a absolute powerhouse at dropping single targets. How I've got it statted out here is with melee crit chance and unyielding enemies. For this weapon, personally, I think there is nothing better than crit. For Zealots specifically, if you are not using Fury of the Faithful, it's really important to have a good amount of base crit because you need to get a proc of a crit to get your Scourge chain going and get up to that 30% crit. So on Zealots, you could probably drop this 5% melee crit chance, but I think it's so good. Like, you see the difference between having no crit and crit, right? It's 3x at a minimum. So we want to be guaranteeing a crit whenever we can. With a 5% additional chance to crit, that's a 3 times damage. It's like what? 3 times damage divided by 20. That's like 15% extra damage or something like that, right? That's a pretty sizable buff. I'm also taking unyielding damage here. As established, bosses take a ton of additional damage. They take like 6.8x on those critical weak spot hits. So if we're multiplying the base damage that goes into them by 25 or 1.25 times, we're getting a huge return on investment here. And this weapon is also a crazy good bosser because of its blessings. We'll talk about in a second. The only other thing I might swap melee crit chance out here for is Carapace damage, because those are the other type of enemies that aren't going to die in one hit. But you know, when you have Uncanny Strike and crits on the weapon, the Crushers and stuff do die pretty fast anyway. But that would be my other option, is go Unyielding in Carapace here, because it's a large target destroyer. Okay, Masteries time. There are lots of good Masteries to choose from this weapon. Just like with the Dueling Sword, they tend to favor like certain weapons that are just crazy, but there's certain ones I want to write off entirely. Let's start by going down here. Ruthless Backstab, 100% rending on backstab hit. This is really pointless. This only applies to Crushers. Those are the only enemies that are going to take any additional damage to your rending attacks, and that is it's just such a waste for a blessing, especially when you have Uncanny Strike to compare it to, right? We can just have 100% rending uptime on all enemies all the time by just getting headshots, which I've already established that we 100% want to be doing. So this is just a waste of a perk here, and there's only one ability that's going to allow you to actually get behind enemies like that, and that's Shroud Field, and it has a cooldown, right? So we also got Mercy Killer. Now Mercy Killer is a boss killing tool. If you have Mercy Killer, this is multiplying your weak spot damage by plus 60%, and that's a different multiplier than all those other damages we saw, so it's going to raise your final damage on those attacks hugely. But it has a prerequisite of the enemy being bleeding, and it's going to take one of your slots. So if you're going for like ultimate boss killing potential, this is a great choice, and you would swap out Uncanny Strike, because you don't need to be killing Crushers with this. You want to be killing bosses, and this is going to be a great final multiplier to your boss damage. Smackdown. This is terrible. 20% crit chance after you punch an enemy. And he has to stagger the enemy as well, which it has a pretty decent stagger, the potential, this little boop right here. Yeah, punch him in the belly. That's that's just not really, I think, something you want to be weaving into your typical gameplay, so we're going to skip on that. We also have Lacerate up here. Lacerate is a very interesting trait. It gives you 4 guaranteed bleed stacks when you get a non-weak spot hit. This can be really great for something like the Veteran, who doesn't necessarily want to overcommit to just like stabbing with the knife. He just wants to get his bleed stacks on the enemy. So for bossing with like focus target, I've done builds like this in the past where I hit the enemy with my bleed stacks and get them up to 16 stacks, and then I swap to my recon las gun and I burn them to death. Those two together work really well, and obviously this is going to allow you to stack your dots faster without banking on this talent over here, which means you need to get crits. We've also got Executor, I think is what they mean to say, but Executor of the Will or whatever. 6% strength on repeated weak spot hit, stacks 5 times, so that means, right, up to 30% strength, which would be nice, right? We want that base damage, but getting repeated weak spot hits is very hard. This means you can't miss the weak spot. This means you can't miss and hit the air. You have to hit heads over and over again, which is very difficult to do, and I think there's better returns elsewhere. Riposte, another really nice choice. It's 20% additional critical chance for 6 seconds on a dodge. This weapon, unlike the dueling sword, does need to be dodging because you don't have any attacks that can like stagger crushers out of their overheads, so you'll have to dodge attacks and just stay on the offensive defense that way. So dodging will give you 20% crit baseline, and that can be very nice for many classes, getting our guaranteed crits up pretty much. We've also got precognition, just like we have with the dueling sword, although I think it's a lot weaker on this weapon unless you are going for boss nonsense. Because if you're doing like Shroud Field, precognition, mercy killer, boss killing, you can get bleed stacks on an enemy by attacking them and getting crits because you're a zealot. Then you dodge, and then you channel a heavy attack and you go Shroud Field and you just stab them in the back of the face like really hard for extra 60% finesse damage, extra 60% weak spot damage, and murder them. And then finally Haymaker, 4% chance to insta-kill human-sized enemies on a chained heavy hit. So this is kind of a troll pick here. The problem with this talent, it would honestly be kind of good into Havoc for like certain outfits of Zealot, because like right, Crushers and Ragers and things have a lot of health, right? You want to kill them instantly, and it takes a long time with anything else. But that 4% chance to insta-kill doesn't give you the credit for the kill. So in the sense that like, okay, I want to refund a cooldown. Say you're like a Zealot who wants to get this talent right here. Where is it? Pious Cutthroat. Backstab kills restore 20% ability cooldown. Well, if the insta-kill is what claims the kill, it doesn't reward you this kill credit. Same thing goes for veterans. If you are trying to get that 6 seconds return every time you kill a specialist and you hit him with your dagger with a heavy attack and it just happens to insta-kill them, it will not give you the 6 seconds. It doesn't trigger knock-on effects, which I think is an unnecessary nerf. Now, this used to be a very funny blessing. I don't know if any of you remember. Let me know in the comments if you remember, but way back in the day, in the early era of this game, this right here actually rolled every time a bleed stack would proc on the enemies, and so there would be a 4% chance every time the bleed ticked, which is like every half second, in order to insta-kill these enemies, and you could just keep that chance at 20% as high as forever, because all you had to do was chain heavy attacks. And it was really funny, because you would just run up to a group, you would light attack all the Crushers in the group, and it also worked on Crushers back then for some reason too, and then you would just start heavy attacking them, and eventually they would just all like flop over dead because they were insta-killed. Awesome. Alright, now let's look at the last two that I totally recommend here. Uncanny Strike, as we established in our Dueling Sword video, go watch it if you haven't, but Uncanny Strike is crazy. Uncanny Strike is going to make up for the one deficit of this weapon, which is that it doesn't have a really great armor potential, killing potential for Carapace. It can't really get through those guys, but with Uncanny Strike it absolutely can. Plus, it makes our bleed damage, which is so important to this weapon, do an absurd amount as well. Then my other recommendation is Flesh Terror. Now, some argument could be made that, hey, the Zealot stacks up bleed stacks pretty quickly on his own, but for many classes, they don't have access to bleeds, and Flesh Terror is amazing. So if you're playing Veteran, Flesh Terror is awesome, because it gets, as I said with Lacerate, it gives you bleeds, which are a powerful dot ability, and it's pretty much guaranteed as long as you can get a crit on there. But even for Zealot, it's a really, really good ability because 16 stacks of bleed is very, very potent. And having it like right off the bat is really, oh, that's not the right thing. Get the fuck away from me. This is the right thing. Having it right away, like, oh my god. Like, watch this. I don't know if I can get up. Like, look at the health bar on this guy, if I can actually get a second hit on him, because I'm not getting cock blocked by a table. Okay, look at his health bar now. See how it's going down by like 2 and 300 every single tick of this thing. And it's really easy with just a single crit to keep that up, because they do fall off kind of fast. Like, I'm down to 13 stacks, 10 stacks, there we go, I got it back up. So you can actually just use this weapon and just kite out bosses forever and just get a crit on them every now and then and just keep the damage rolling in. And it's already a really good bossing damage weapon, as you can see here. But that additional bleed damage does a lot to bosses. It does quite a considerable amount to crushers and stuff as well, because crushers get that uncanny debuff. And it also allows us to really boost our horde clearing capabilities, because killing a horde with light attacks that do 50 damage is going to kind of suck. But if you have yourself like these light attacks that do this, and then you can just like kind of walk away once you've got your bleed stacks on enemies, and it really, really withers them down. Especially helps with like light hordes of mixed like flacken enemies and stuff like that. So it just allows us to stack those bleeds up really quickly. We can do 2 quick strikes on an enemy, get 2 crits, and be like, all right, they're max stacked out, and then walk away, and they'll take a couple thousand damage as a result of that. So I definitely like this blessing. If you don't like to have those bleeds on there, if you're playing Zealot and you don't think you need those extra bleeds, I would say that probably your other choice is like either Riposte or Precognition or Mercy Killer. Those are probably the choices that I would go with there. But I think that just for general use, Flesh Terror and Uncanny Strike are the way to go. It's going to give you a nice rounded bit of damage. Okay guys, so here we are with some of my own gameplay. We're just going to check out how I play through some Auric, just some solo Auric. And I'm going to be commentating. You can see already that I'm using a lot of movement tech, such as Shrimping there, if you watch my movement tutorial video, to dodge really, really far. And there, you saw I opened up by getting a charge crit on both of those guys with the heavy attack. That's something that the Mark 6 dagger can do really well, is its heavy attack sweep multiple enemies, so you can hit them and get bleeds on them. I just bled them up a little bit, and now they're just going to bleed to death in the background. I don't even have to worry about them. Same thing going for these guys. I'm just getting on them, I'm putting a couple bleeds into them, and I'm leaving them, because I know as soon as I've got him here, he's dead. That guy over there on the left side of the screen is dead. He can't survive those bleeds, so I'm just going to walk away, and bleeds to death the next second. Now, one thing that players don't utilize to their full effect when they're playing Dagger, usually, is that the Dagger has a hidden 20% damage buff when you're attacking enemies from behind. That's something they changed about it a long, long time ago, and they haven't reverted since. I don't know why they gave it that buff. It was already good enough, but hey, there you go. It synergizes really well with the Zealot, who also has a talent that many players take that they overlook it. That's 20% damage for backstab hits. So those two together, giving you some crazy damage when you're hitting from behind. That applies to the direct attack itself, not bleeds. Here we are up against our enemy, the Crusher. The Crusher would be a scary enemy for a Dagger in most context, right? It's got 3,000 plus health. The dagger is only doing like 150 on a heavy attack, but if we get crits or headshots, it multiplies it. And of course, we have Uncanny Strike, which is going to allow us to cut through this guy's armor like butter. All we need to do is poke him in the head. You see, we poked him in the head one time there. Not much damage. We're gonna use a push stab. We're gonna poke him again, big chunk, and then we're gonna do a heavy stab follow up. Boom, dead in like 2 seconds. Let's rewind that and watch how fast that is. Poke. Boom. There you go. That's how fast you can kill a Crusher. You can kill them faster than that, honestly. But that's a pretty fast one. And then there's no shame in when you're surrounded by enemies with the dagger, just to start shoving and then flailing your light attacks. Light attacks are really, really good in this weapon because they're applying bleeds, they're giving you crits, they are just keeping enemies staggered. Crits like to stagger enemies a lot. Same thing going in with this Crusher here. Since my light attacks are spammy and they're not going to hit any one target, and since my heavy attack on this weapon is going to be a sweep and it'll hit other targets including the Crusher, I want to use the push stab on the Mark 6 in order to drill those shots directly into his head over and over. It's like the rapier thrust, so it's definitely really, really good. And something you'll notice with the dagger is that you can't play in the same way that you do with the dueling sword. The dueling sword can keep every enemy at arm's length and just kind of like fence them off before they even get close. The dagger, you have to be up super, super close with these enemies, which means you are going to be taking hits. And more importantly, the dagger doesn't have... Oh, that's a nice nothing to point out here. More importantly, the dagger doesn't have a lot of stagger value on its attacks, so enemies that you're hitting will be trying to hit you back. So getting surrounded is a very, very scary proposition with the dagger because you can't stop these enemies from repeatedly chain hitting you, so you need to be picking your engagements carefully. Getting overwhelmed by a large group of enemies, as you'll see in a second here, is a sign that you need to like get the fuck out of dodge and reconfigure or re-attack the problem from a different angle, because the dagger, it does allow you to reposition very easily. Now also one thing I want to notice here is what happens if you don't get crits or headshots, right? We have to be going for crits, we have to be going for headshots, and this is why. Watch how long it takes me to kill this maniac. 1 backstab, heavy attack, 2 backstab, 3, that's 3 attacks, that was a miss one. But then, you know, here, I finally get a crit, and boom, I kill him from half health to 0 in 1 hit. So that's the difference, and I just stabbed this burster in the face because I wasn't paying attention. That's the difference in damage potential. If you aren't getting crits and you aren't getting headshots, you're doing 0 damage with this thing. So you need to be trying for both of those at all possible times. Here's another great example of how different you have to play with this dagger. I need to be in such close quarters to these guys, so I'm like weaving around pillars and stuff. If I was playing dueling sword, I would just be like fencing them off. They would never be able to get even close to me. Here's another scary enemy for the dagger, which is the Reaper. The Reaper doesn't get staggered by the dagger's attacks. It doesn't have a high enough stagger value, so he gets to shoot you the whole time, so you gotta be careful. Here I am throwing out those heavies, getting bleeds and crits on all of them in a nice big row, so a lot of those enemies just died, cutting the head off a shotgunner there, and then stabbing that crusher 3 times. Watch this. Okay, he takes 1 push stab, heavy attack follow-up, and another heavy attack follow-up. He's been hit in the head, so I've got 5 stacks of Uncanny. So this is pure armor-penetrating bleeds right here. I hit him with 2 bleeds, or 2 crits, so I know his bleeds are maxed out at 16 stacks, and now I don't have to attack him anymore. I just move on to other targets, because watch his health. It looks like I'm about to kill him, but he dies to bleeds there. So I just had to hit him 3 times, and then I can just walk away. Well, only 2 of them had to actually like really do any damage. And then here's a really scary situation for the dagger, is being surrounded like this. As I said before, the dagger, it doesn't have very good push power like some weapons do. Like, I don't have a lot of ways to stagger my way out of this potential, so I need to be very careful not to get myself surrounded or I could die. So I'll just kind of pick my way out of here. I'm trying to get some light attacks on Ragers and get them bled down. And then Bulwarks. Bulwarks are a pretty tricky enemy for many weapons, but the dagger is a foil to the Bulwark, because all you have to do is get some light attacks. You have to hit them when they're open like this. So I'm going to wait till he goes open. I'm going to use my charge and stagger him. And then I just have to get some attacks, some crits on him while his shield is down. And look how much damage he's taking from that. Of course, I just shoot him to follow up. But he takes so much damage from bleeds, because bleeds and damage to unyielding is crazy on this weapon in general. And also I have 25% unyielding damage. I decided to peace out here and just run on up the stairs. And from here, I just go on to win the game and save the Empire from the forces of heresy. Okay, so that's the whole gameplay clip. Hopefully you saw a lot of cool moves like the ones I was showcasing in the movesets in the last part. This one being the Mark 6, using those heavy attack sweeps, and then the push stabs to deal with single target damage. But hopefully you can see how much more fun and hectic it is to play with the dagger over the dueling sword, because you have to be actively like engaged and close to these enemies. Let's go ahead and go back into the Psychanium, and we'll wrap up by talking about the movement tech that I was using in this, because I was using an absolute ton of little tricks to flip my way around the arena and stay super, super evasive to all these enemies. Let's go. Okay guys, here I am to talk about the mobility for this weapon. It is very similar to the dueling sword. The dueling sword, remember, it has that super, super high base movement speed. This weapon is very much the same, with a cap of 0.89 sprint speed when you've got it all the way at 60 or 80 mobility, which I don't necessarily recommend, but it is pretty fun. The thing that makes it different is that the dueling sword has a couple of ways of boosting its speed in a very, very quick second, and the dagger doesn't. But the dagger has more consistent move speed overall, and I'll show you how that works in just a second here. So the dueling sword, remember, it has this little flick animation on light attack 1 where you can just like throw yourself really, really fast in a direction. The dagger does not get that. If you check my speedometer in the top right corner, you can see that throwing a light attack makes me gain like a tiny little bit of speed, but also I lose speed at the same time. It's all within like a couple of frames, so not really that useful. The dueling sword had a much larger boost. It pushes you into the 10 meters per second or whatever it's called range, and that was crazy. But the dagger does have this attack right here, the heavy attack. And look at my speedometer while I'm throwing out these heavy attacks. It's going up into the 9, almost 10 range every time I release this lunge. So what you should be doing, if you didn't catch this in my last video talking about the dueling sword and how to lunge chain like this, is you should be holding down heavy while sprinting, and then when you release it, during that release animation, as the number peaks and it goes to 9, that's when you want to throw out your sprint. And you want to chain again while you're sprinting. And once you've built up the muscle memory for this, it's really simple. Look at how little stamina cost this incurs to move like this. And also, it's incredibly evasive. You saw me doing it a lot because enemies can't hit you while you're sliding, with range attacks anyway. So very fast, allows you to outpace every boss and every enemy, have infinite stamina, and evade range attacks. Now there is one more movement trick, that, and of course you can do this off of like boxes and stuff. You want to do like this and get a nice long slide, but you saw me utilizing the sideways dodging, tripping like that instead, because that's a much more sharp boost of speed for the dagger than the lunges. But there is one more trick that you can use to gain a lot of speed more consistently, which is the dagger's specialty. The dagger, when you're holding down your heavy attack and sprinting, gives you a 20% movement speed on your heavy attack 2. So watch this. When I'm heavy attack 1ing, let's just sprint first of all. 6.69, very nice, right? But if I hold down heavy attack while sprinting, I actually gain 6.69. In fact, I can hold that for a little longer so you can see it. I'm still at 6.69, so I'm moving the exact same speed. But if you get rid of that first attack by either light attacking or heavy attacking first, and then holding down this second attack, like this right here, hold that one down, that will give you 20% movement speed. So watch this. So now I'm at 8.02, crazy. And all I have to do is keep getting rid of that attack, and then I can go back to holding down that side attack. It's going to give me 8.02. And this is a speedrunning technique that allows you to move super fast in the environments, because a consistent 8 movement speed per second is nuts in terms of overall movement speed in the game. Now, how am I holding down this weapon for so long like that? Well, that's another little speedrunner trick. What you need to do is you need to go into the options, key bindings, and you need to look for the binding that wields your primary weapon, wields your dagger. And whatever this is, whenever you hold down a heavy attack with this weapon, just spam that key while you're doing it. So what I'm doing is I'm throwing a light attack, and then I'm holding it, and I'm spamming my 6 key, because that was where it was bound. And that's going to allow me to hold this for like double the duration for some godforsaken reason, because, you know, fat shark coding or whatever. But it's really cool, and allows you to get much more juice out of your charged up sprint, and then you have to throw out that attack and rinse and repeat. But yeah, it'll make you way faster in general. This is definitely the fastest moving weapon in the game. Even though the dueling sword has like nice little bursts of speed, this thing is consistently fast and allows you to reposition around the environment, which is something that you definitely want to be doing in an active combat encounter, is just getting the good positions and looking for backstabs and stuff. Okay, guys, well, I believe that's everything for the dagger. So if you found like you got something useful out of this video, please let me know in the comments, and also tell me which weapon you want to look at next. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you are going to pick up the dagger when the dueling sword gets nerfed, and I'll see you very soon.